chain.
I am not the trafficker.
Who's the trafficker then?
If you tell me now, come with me to car, don't take nothing, then run from here. I'm running.
I discover a multi-million-pound criminal network.
And how much do you want?
45,000.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by that, are you?
I have no words for it.
And investigate the trade right on our doorstep.
All gave this as their address. So you don't know any of the names of the people?
Tonight, humans for sale. It's early morning. I've just arrived at a service station on the outskirts of London. I've been told that 3 times a week, a bus from Romania pulls into this car park.
It's just before 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, the information I have is that the bus set off from Romania 2 days ago. It's been travelling non-stop for 2 days. And when it comes here, the people will get off and be separated into various minibuses. So I'm just waiting on these minibuses to arrive.
Minutes later, and 4 empty minibuses with Romanian number plates turn up. All I need now is for the long-distance coach to arrive.
10 to 3 and no sign of the bus, but the minibuses are still there, so... Oh. There is the bus.
The bus is filled with Romanians. They've just travelled non-stop for more than 60 hours, crossing 7 countries to get here, their final destination, the UK. They will all have come willingly. It's just some may have been trafficked.
I guess if I want to find out more about where these people have come from and what their stories are, or stories of people like them, then I'm going to have to get that bus.
Human trafficking is big business. People are now the second most lucrative criminal commodity next to drugs, with lives being traded and sold on a scale never seen before. I've spent the past 6 months investigating this trade and witnessed some of the shocking and ruthless ways in which humans are now being exploited.
My investigation begins here, in the Highlands of Scotland.
It's a Bangladesh life is a colorful life. I was passing my life, with my wife, my family, my dad, my mom, my brother, sister, everybody with it together. It's a good life.
Abul was working in his family's restaurant when he saw a job for a tandoori chef in the UK. It was being advertised by this man, Shamsul Arafin, who, after giving Abul a job, then ordered him to pay £20,000 for the visa and the paperwork.
I borrowed the money from the private lending agent.
You went to money lenders?
Yeah, and I arranged the money, and my father sold the land.
Arafin ran this hotel in a remote village near Fort William. As seen in this online advert, the hotel and grounds were extensive, catering to coach parties. Abul soon discovered the promised job as a tandoori chef was a lie.
My work involved in gardening, cleaning, room, cooking, painting, log moving, cutting bush. In the night time also serve the customer.
This was now his life. 22 hours a day, 7 days a week. Fellow Bangladeshi Kamal Ahmed also became Arafin's slave. Both men realised they were trapped, victims of labour trafficking. And they had to stay under Arafin's control if they had any hope of recovering their money.
You have to pay £13,000 to me, and after working with me for 5 years, then you will get your money back. I am the king of this Stuart hotel. Like he said like that. Your money is with me. passport is with me.
During the time that you worked for Arafin, how much did you get paid?
I got only £1,600 in 15 months.
One of the hotel's regular customers was Alison Smith. After several months of befriending the men, they opened up as to what Arafin was doing to them.
They were frightened of being beaten, they were frightened of being hurt by him, and they were frightened. They were frightened for their lives. The only thing that was missing was the whip on their back. It was trafficking, and I couldn't believe it. This had been going on under my nose, and I didn't know anything about it, and the community didn't know anything about it. They were promised a wonderful life, and they got the exact opposite.
Arafin was prosecuted for labour trafficking. He was jailed for just 3 years. With the legal case closed, both men were ordered to leave the country by the Home Office, their visa applications refused. A move they say has put their lives in danger, still owing thousands to moneylenders in Bangladesh.
If you don't pay them, what is the threat?
They just threatening me. Once a time I was in my country, they just want to sell my kidney. They want to sell my kidney. If I go by country and they will harm for me, you know, I have to pay them. I have to pay them.
You have no choice.
No choice.
More than a third of all human trafficking victims are exploited for labour. I'm on my way to meet a man who spent years helping rescue and support victims of the trafficking trade in Scotland.
People have got distorted views about what human trafficking actually is. It's not people being snatched off the street and then forced abroad. You know, it's people being sold a dream, being sold an idea of a better lifestyle, better housing, a better income, an opportunity to better their lives. Then they arrive here, their travel documents are taken from them, they're put in atrocious accommodation, which is usually overcrowded. They're not given the kind of job they would expect to get, if they get any job at all.
How big is the problem here?
The victims run into millions. In Scotland alone, you'd be talking thousands rather than hundreds or more than that.
Jim says he's watched entire communities become affected by human trafficking, like Glasgow's Govan Hill.
There's a high number of victims from the Govan Hill area, and that's because there's a clear link between Eastern European crime gangs who have human trafficking as one of the things that they do, but links with organised Asian crime gangs in Glasgow. So the Eastern European crime gangs will provide the victims, and the Asian crime gangs here will provide the accommodation, which is why there's quite a lot of it in Govan Hill.
Roma communities from Slovakia, the Czech Republic and Romania make up more than a fifth of the local population. Those countries are amongst the most popular source countries for trafficking. Most of the victims and the traffickers are Roma. It's little wonder then that areas like this repeatedly come to the attention of enforcement agencies investigating human trafficking. Raids on properties here are a familiar sight. This mother and daughter from Slovakia were jailed after trafficking a young girl from Eastern Europe to Govan Hill. And as recently as February, police arrested suspects in a sex trafficking case. It's believed girls were being brought to Govan Hill from Slovakia and forced into prostitution. Roma are one of the most vulnerable ethnic minority groups in the world and have been marginalised and excluded for centuries. Trying to get any information here is hard.
Now, the problem is that the Roma people have spent years facing some of the worst kinds of discrimination, so they're very private people, and trying to engage them in conversation is difficult, let alone trying to bring up the subject of human trafficking.
If I want to try and investigate the supply chain, meet those at the heart of the trade, then I need to go to where both the victims and the traffickers are coming from. Slovakia. It only became independent from Czechoslovakia in 1993. Since then, it's struggled to break the cycle of poverty. Here, Romas are marginalised from the rest of the population, living in squalid shanty settlements with little or no money. Slovakia is one of the most popular source countries in Europe for traffickers. The destination for most of their victims, the UK. I'm on my way to meet a man who describes himself as a social worker. He works closely with authorities in trafficking cases between Slovakia and Scotland.
He's one of the few people in this area who's prepared to work with the Roma community. And here he is now. I'm told that what he doesn't know about trafficking in this area is not worth knowing. So hopefully he'll tell me who, how, where, when, why. Hopefully. Eve.
Hi.
Sam. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Fine.
Pleasure. We're fine. I'm looking forward to today.
Okay, thank you very much.
You have a plan for me?
Yes, I have something for you.
Okay. So shall we go and we'll talk and drive?
Yeah.
Right, let's just go.
Eve starts by taking me to a nearby house, which is owned by a man whom he says is a trafficker.
Look at this place. This comfortable house.
That's a nice house.
It's a very nice
Compared
house.
to the rest
With
of the houses.
camera, everything. The guy is in Glasgow and doing his business.
Eve says the man buys local Roma girls and sells them to men in Scotland. 1 in 6 females trafficked to the UK today is sexually exploited.
It's where girls used to be 1 or 2 days.
And then taken to
They
Glasgow.
traffic from here to Glasgow by car.
Why were they kept there? Just to wait for the transport?
Maybe sometimes they don't have any passports, any identity card. They used to fix passport, identity card, and then go.
Padlocked.
Eve tells me the girls trafficked to Glasgow are sold to Asian men, predominantly Pakistani or Indian, to take part in what's referred to as a sham marriage. The men can then apply for UK citizenship as they're now married to an EU citizen.
How many girls would have come
Oh,
to that
come
house?
on, you
How, what, 5, 10, 100?
know. More than 100.
Really?
Yeah, really. Really.
Eve has arranged for me to meet a Roma girl who was sold to a Pakistani man in Glasgow 2 years ago for a sham marriage. By the time she was rescued, she'd already given birth to a daughter. But when we get to the house, we're in for a surprise.
Up here,
Where is she gone?
Glasgow, like Malagesco. Maybe she's back to Glasgow.
You think your daughter may have been trafficked back to Glasgow? Okay.
The parents don't appear concerned at all.
This is the 3rd time your daughter has been trafficked.
The girl may have gone, but she's left her young daughter behind.
This is her baby. But she must miss her baby.
Eve says the girl was sold by a family friend. Most trafficking victims are sold or bought by someone they know.
That's typical ghetto, and most of those people living here, their ideal life is to get to Great Britain.
He takes me round the area to meet people he says are either traffickers or victims of the trade. We go from house to house, village to village. I'm told I can't film those I meet. It's too dangerous.
I'm trying to investigate the trafficking of young women from Slovakia to the UK. Do you believe your sister was trafficked? You've never heard of trafficking before? Some people are saying that these girls have been trafficked.
It seems more girls have been sold to gangs in Scotland.
So we know now that there are 3 girls currently missing who are back in the UK in Glasgow.
Yes.
Fear of speaking out about the trafficker is clear.
I am a little bit afraid.
What are you? Can I?
Because I'm afraid because I don't want to have problems.
It's estimated the money made by traffickers runs into billions. It's little wonder they don't tolerate people speaking out.
What kind of repercussions have there been that you know of when people have spoken out about traffickers?
When they're spoken out, I think the trafficker can come or directly or indirectly, they beat them and so on and so forth.
So the threats of violence are real.
Yeah.
Eve tells me the Roma traffickers in this part of Slovakia can't operate without the permission of the leaders for each settlement.
Okay, let's go.
He takes me to meet one such leader. Known locally as a man handy with his fists, much of his life has been spent behind bars for violence. He's reluctant to be filmed, but eventually allows my camera in.
I'm from the UK, and in the UK there are many Roma people there.
Ja dobro živo slovenski. Ťažké nepomôžu to cigáňom. Začalo po cigánizme. A každý ide odtiaľ slovenský preč. Cigáni. Volá, ktorý no ako to má na to.
And what's this here?
He shows me the conditions he and his family live in.
Okay, so this is the only bathroom.
I ask him whether he knows anything about the trafficking of girls to the UK for marriage.
Ale čo rozpráva som pár, dievčatá tak rozprávajú ako dobre tam anglicky.
Really?
Hej.
Wow.
No dobre, ďakujem. Už nepoviem, už má nič už.
Okay, we go.
His evasiveness makes me suspicious.
Eve, he's lying.
Yes, because his own daughter is sold.
He sold his own daughter.
And officially the daughter is married to Pakistani guy.
Unbelievable. And he stood there and claimed he knew nothing. See, I now want to get back out and say to him, I know you sold your daughter, but he's a prize country, he's a prize fighter. And he's spent his life in prison.
Yes.
So I think we just have to let this one go.
25 years in prison.
For violence.
For violence.
Yeah, okay, so maybe he's not the man to go and, yeah. Okay, should we go?
I wonder how Eve can be so sure of Victor's involvement in the trafficking trade. He then tells me payments are being made between Victor and the man Victor sold his daughter to in Glasgow.
And you know this how? Because you're the one that passes the money across.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that before. So tell me the truth. What happened? You tell me about the money.
The Pakistani guy used to send money to the family through my own address, Western Union, to me, 100. I used to go to them every week.
I hadn't expected human trafficking to be embedded so deeply in communities here. And I certainly wasn't prepared for quite how organised and lucrative a criminal enterprise the selling of humans had become.
How old is this woman that we're going to see?
Maximum 22. Okay, back your girl here.
The woman was sold into a sham marriage with a Pakistani man in the UK. Eve tells me to pay particular attention to the birth certificate of the woman's young son.
So this birth certificate, there is no father's name.
She's not obliged to say.
No, the father, of course.
The father's name.
Okay.
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 My questions about the father suddenly changed the atmosphere.
And you know, I'm not allowed to ask questions about the I'm allowed, not allowed. Okay, so if I start to ask the questions I really want to ask, the men are going to get very angry. Okay.
The mother-in-law makes a phone call. Eve tells me it's to the trafficker who demands to speak to the young woman.
So, I think we can't really ask you much more. Yeah, I think we should go. Yeah, I think we should go.
The camera is turned off and I leave, confused as to the relevance of the blank birth certificate.
No name, father's name, no name.
Yeah.
That is the normal thing they used to. the Pakistan guy can claim at any time, I am the father, and
So I can understand. Right. Sorry. I just understand. It is a good thing that there is no father's name.
Yes.
Because it means anybody can now buy that woman and the child and claim the child is theirs because they have deliberately left that blank. So even though she's been trafficked once, she could be trafficked again and again. She will be worth a lot of money.
And the man pretending to be the father can exploit human rights laws, claiming he can't be deported from his country of choice as he's the baby's parent. My time with Eve was a stark lesson for me in exactly how the people at the heart of the trafficking trade are nothing more than a lucrative commodity. And when you see the little they come from, it's clear the profit margins are huge. Just a short drive away, on the outskirts of the city of Košice, is this place, Lunik 9. It houses the largest Roma community in Slovakia. It's estimated around 7,500 people live here. Few have electricity. There's no heating, no running water. Hepatitis, scabies and meningitis are common. Unemployment is almost 100%. Bus drivers who stop here receive a special hazard pay. It's communities like these which the traffickers deliberately target. As I look around, I'm suddenly approached by a young girl in the gathering crowd.
How tough is life here?
How is
How
life?
tough is life? How hard?
Very hard. You see?
It shocks me.
Yeah, I know. So many people, they don't understand. They don't want to give me the job in Slovakia because I'm in Gypsy, eh?
She tells me she's here visiting her family and understands why people are so desperate to escape the grinding poverty as she did.
If they said to you, I have a dream and my dream is to go to the UK,
They say you want to go UK, I want to live there.
that's their dream.
Yes, that's the dream, definitely. So if you tell me now, come with me to car, don't take nothing, then run from here. I'm running.
And somebody came to you and said, I'll give you a job, I'll give you accommodation, I'll take you to the UK, you'd go.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's not thinking about this. Straight away.
What if, at the other end, those promises were lies and it was not true?
Yes, that's the problem. Because so many people, they lie.
When you look at the poverty these guys are living in, she's talking absolute sense. How tempting it would be for somebody to come along and say, I'll give you a job, I'll give you money, I'll give you accommodation. You know, just the bare basics. So I can absolutely understand the temptation now when the traffickers come to town.
Such vulnerability, such desperation makes communities like this one rich pickings for the trafficker, their profits an easy get. But some Roma communities in this region do have money. Towns like this one, Pavlovca nad Uhom, where the houses are known as Lentilkova or Smarty houses because of their bright colours. This resident, seen with our translator, says he's watched the wealth of his town grow in recent years.
Historically, a great number of the people from here, they were traffickers. They were responsible for the movement of people and trafficking people to the UK.
No, v minulosti áno, áno.
So how do the people feel about the fact that this is known everywhere else as the trafficking town?
Cítia sa veľmi zle, lebo rozprávajú sa veľa nepravd, hej. Mnohí, ktorí tu bývajú, tak získali peniaze tým, že pracovali čestne a niektorí získali peniaze tým, že robili to prevádzačstvo, ale ľudia v všeobecnosti všetkých dávajú do jednej kopy a povedia, že keď si spálovec, tak ty si získal peniaze z prevádzačstva, hej, čo nie je pravda.
There's something else at work here. Many of these houses lie empty. The residents don't seem to be at home.
And so what cities do the people live in who own these houses?
Glasgow, Newcastle, Derby, Bradford, Rotherham, Corby.
Anglo-Slovak links quickly become apparent.
So this is a British registration plate. Do you get many British registration plates here?
Áno, ale v lete máme viac,
Yes.
kedy sú doma. A teraz,
Really?
teraz menej,
Yeah.
lebo sú tam anglické.
Right now it's not too many because they're all in Britain.
So the ironic thing is that these houses are their summer, it's almost like these are their holiday homes. Yeah.
No, hlavný domov je tu, tam pracujú.
So they commute to the UK.
Tak.
A car breaks down beside me. The driver, a resident of Govan Hill.
Victory Euro, Katkaro, Kalbeck Street, Denisov, tak bývali tam.
You can travel to deepest, darkest Slovakia and meet someone who lived or worked in Govan Hill.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
It's clear strong economic links have developed between Scotland and Slovakia. But how much of it is built on the success of the trafficking trade between the two countries? Slovakian police have a unit dedicated to tackling the trafficking trade. And its efforts have been recognised worldwide as having had some considerable success. They show me some recent cases.
And that's where they lived. They're traffickers.
Yes.
Here they are on a night raid to apprehend the traffickers behind a major organised forced begging gang. Here, rescuing some of the victims. And another arrest, a man believed to be part of an organised crime gang. Colonel Adrian Began leads the unit responsible for tackling human trafficking across Slovakia.
Veľkej Británii, konkrétne aj Škótsko, sú bohaté krajiny, kde je teda ponúka alebo dopyt po takomto spôsobe legalizácie pobytu. V poslednom období sme riešili prípad, a to sa týkalo práve mesta Glasgow a konkrétne Govan Hill, kde prebiehalo uzatváranie nútených sobášov, obeti pochádzajúcich zo Slovenska a so štátnymi príslušníkmi Pakistanu za účelom legalizácie pobytu v Škótsku. A následne tieto obete boli sexuálne vykorisťované práve v meste Glasgow. A samozrejme on sa snaží maximalizovať zisk a potom ho poskytuje na ďalšie vykorisťovanie. Aby sa peniaze vrátili.
They want to get their investment back. So it's a win-win.
Áno, okrem obete samozrejme.
During my time in Slovakia, I've seen the kind of poverty I never expected to see within Europe, and how desperation to escape is leading so many young women into the arms of traffickers. I'm beginning to understand how deeply complex it is, and why this exploitation is so difficult to fight. Back in Scotland, and I wonder how I can see if sham marriages of trafficked girls really are a part of life in Glasgow, as I've been told in Slovakia. I decide to check Scotland's marriage records for some of the most common Slovakian, Romanian and Roma maiden names. I then look for suspicious markers. An Asian married name, a young bride, the same address registered repeatedly, and tellingly, how many got divorced after the 5-year mark, the length of time you have to have residency before being granted a UK passport. I find dozens of marriages between young Eastern European girls and older Asian men. I find 70 marriages between the two communities registered in Glasgow, a third in Govan Hill. And 40% of those who married there just over 5 years ago, the cut-off for the passport, are now divorced. And there's one more telltale sign, little trace of the couples living at their registered addresses. This street cropped up many times.
Right, now this street has got more than a dozen links to marriages between Pakistani men and Eastern European brides in recent years. In the second floor flat, there's been links to 3 marriages over a 3-year period. Now, 2 of the brides were teenagers, one a 17-year-old Romanian marrying a Pakistani man a decade older than her. So I'm going to try and see if I can speak to them. Right, it's that number. See if they're there. Hello, I'm looking for, is it Mr. He was registered as being married and living here, but he's not here, no. Right, so none of them are living there. 17-year-old bride from Romania and a groom from Pakistan gave this as their address. The man that was registered as living here, he's gone, and his wife, she's gone. Believe it or not, in a flat just on the other side, there's another groom and his bride. Right, so Mr. isn't there. Right, now the next one, the bride, the groom, and the witness all gave this as their address. So, where is it? So you don't know any of the names of the people? Right, no luck getting anyone in. More than a dozen marriages linked to this street. Brides, grooms, witnesses to the weddings, and of all of the doors that I've knocked, not one couple lives there. Not one witness. Nobody.
It's not definitive proof of sham marriages, but all the signs appear to be there. Where women are usually trafficked for a sham marriage or sexual exploitation, for men it's labour the traffickers exploit them for. Any EU citizen currently has the right to work in the UK. Brexit may stop this free movement, but it's not expected to prevent the vulnerable from being trafficked when they apply to come. Such is the lure of the UK.
So we had a phone call into the BBC newsroom from a group of construction workers from Romania who said that they had been trafficked here, that they hadn't been paid, the conditions were really bad, they weren't able to eat, and they gave me the name and telephone number of the man that they say trafficked them. Now I phoned this man, this alleged trafficker, and strangely enough, he has agreed to meet me. So I'm going to go and see him now and see what he says. It's this one. Soren.
Hi.
Sam.
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome. Okay.
Can we
thank
come
you.
in?
Please.
Wow.
Hi.
Is this your new place?
Yes.
It's quite empty.
Yeah, it's empty. Only I am.
Oh, there's only you here?
Yeah.
Where are all the other men?
To go back to Romania?
They've gone.
Yes. To the guys who had come to work this month.
Soren tells me he hasn't been paid for a large contract, for which he brought over a number of men from Romania.
How many?
30.
30 people?
Yes.
You brought across 30
I
people?
brought 30 people here.
And you promised them the work that was promised to you?
Yes.
Soren denies mistreating the men and says he's the one out of pocket.
Do you feel exploited?
Of course I feel exploited because I spend my money, I spend my time, I work, and he promised me one thing and it happens something else. I feel like a slave.
Have you been trafficked?
Yes.
If you were trafficked, then the men that you brought across were trafficked.
Of course.
Now, does that make you the trafficker?
I am not the trafficker.
Who's the trafficker then?
The man what he promised for us, Scottish man.
Really?
I come to work and in the end of job, it's no money, how he promised.
Oh, I don't know what to think about Soren. He's either someone who is doing this out of the goodness of his heart and bringing these men across to provide them job opportunities in a country they want to create a future in, or he's a trafficker.
The problem is trying to prove the difference. When there's complicity by the victim, no matter how small, how do you prove force? Especially when those doing the trafficking are amongst some of the world's most organised and ruthless criminal gangs, as I'm about to discover. The former communist country of Romania is still trying to shake off its reputation for corruption. Its deep and complex organised criminal networks spread their tentacles across Europe. I'm travelling west to an area called Timis, which is one of the worst problems with child exploitation in the whole country.
So this is one of our safe homes. We cannot give you the address, you know. It looks from outside like any of houses in the village.
This is Lorena Rusevan. She runs a charity which rescues and houses girls who've been trafficked.
Up front there are cameras, there are safety bar, doors are locked. This is necessary, is to protect the girls. Human trafficking is the second most profitable in criminal industry in the world. To these criminals, they are an investment. They want them back.
Has anybody ever tried to snatch their investment back?
Oh yes, we had situations when people found where girls go to school, and we had girls that have been kidnapped from school.
By the traffickers?
Yes, they want them back. They want them back.
Living at the safe house is Anna. At just 14 years old, she was trafficked by a family friend for sexual exploitation and forced into prostitution.
Și eu nu știu ce se întâmplă. A dus un bărbat și tot mă atingea, punea mâna pe mine și m-a speriat și i-am zis să se dea la o parte, după aceea încerca să-mi rupă hainele.
And did he rape you then?
Da.
For the next 3 months, Anna was prostituted, raped repeatedly by client after client.
And I know this is so hard, but I mean, was this something that happened once a week, once a day? How often?
De 4 ori pe zi.
How do you survive that in your head?
Chiar nu știu. Nu-mi dau seama.
Could you escape? I mean, why couldn't you leave?
Nu puteam, că mă țineau închisă în casă. Și mă aduceau bărbați, nu puteam să scap de acolo.
The men who raped her were all aged between 50 and 70.
Și acum mai am anumite amintiri. El lucra afară în câmp și nu știa ce mi se întâmplă, nu știa că mi-s violată, nu știa că mi-s traficată, nu știa nimic despre mine.
In terms of trying to get your life back, how are you managing to do that?
Am început să uit tot și să mă îmbăzesc cu lumea de din afară, care știu că îmi face mie mult rău.
Are you scared you'll be trafficked again?
Da.
Unlike Slovakia, where the victims are harvested from impoverished communities, in this part of Romania, poverty isn't quite so endemic, and so the traffickers have to be more sophisticated.
They go near schools, internet, social media. It's a source of recruiting. These girls will be raped, will be beaten, will be humiliated. You have a girl that has 5 to 9 clients a night, and next day she has to clean the toilets, make the breakfast for the trafficant, be nice to him. At some point they give up. You cannot measure the damage. It's a broken life. It's a broken life.
Lorena tells me that the links between the UK and Romania have grown stronger in recent years and become ever more apparent. She tells me to head to a nearby town called Covasant, known as the Gypsy Palace town.
If you are looking for what they call gypsy wealth, this is it. The town of Gypsy Palaces. This is money on an unbelievable scale.
I pass one of the biggest mansions in the town and suddenly realise why Lorena sent me here.
Oh my goodness, look at that. Look at that. British registration plate. British registration plate. British registration plate. What's that one? British registration plate. Every vehicle outside that particular Gypsy Palace, as they're called, is a British registration plate.
In fact, the whole town is filled with them.
How many British registration plates there are? Caravans. All British registration plates. Cars.
If you needed any more evidence of the strong links between Eastern Europe and the UK and the amount of money flowing between the two, then look no further than here. Few prosecutions mean it's hard to fully understand what happens to victims once they've been trafficked. I'm on my way to meet a lawyer who helps the British police build cases against some of the most serious and organised trafficking gangs.
I'm trying to find her.
Hi, Adina. Nice to meet you. How are you? How are you?
She says that once trafficked, the victims will be traded between the gangs who bid against each other during live auctions.
The girl would be presented most of the times naked, so that the evaluation can go according to the way that girl would produce money. The women are forced to sleep with one of the traffickers to see how well she does it. And the prices would be settled according to the age, according to the appearance, whether that person is a virgin person or not a virgin person, because that would also raise the price. So she can start in being exploited for prostitution, but then later on for labor exploitation, domestic exploitation, agriculture, and eventually in the old ages for begging.
In terms of prices for these girls, what kind of prices?
A few thousand euros, 2,000, 3,000 euros.
Adina says that in the pursuit of profit, the trafficking gangs have begun to diversify.
There are very, very poor people who are willing to sell one of their organs or part of their organs.
She shows me how a simple internet search for kidney for sale reveals a list of people willing to sell their organs.
That person's 18 years old.
Yeah, and this is the price, 30,000 euros, negotiable.
For the kidney?
For the kidney, or a part of the liver for 25,000 euros, negotiable.
So the traffickers would take advantage of these people by what? Making the arrangements for the harvesting of the organs?
The traffickers would contact them and tell them that, look, you are willing to sell your organ, I'm having somebody who wants to buy it. After the operation took place, they would realize that they are not receiving the money and that they have been trafficked.
Would you want to try to call one of these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, you could call one now.
I spot that one of the numbers has a British prefix. Adina calls the number.
Bună, îmi cer scuze de deranj pentru anunțuri online, vă deranjez.
It's a man from London.
Puneți-mi, vă rog frumos, mai e valabil? Am văzut că eu călătoresc. I have asked, is the 50,000 euro the last price? And I asked, do you know the context in which we can do this? And he said, well, I think it would be better in Romania. But we can do it also here if you wish to.
In London?
Yes.
I'm shocked by that, are you?
Yeah. I have no words for it.
Wow.
Traffickers, regardless of their speciality, sex, labour, organs, have to move their victims quickly, easily, and in large numbers. I've been told that buses run 3 times a week to the UK, filled with people chasing work. It's the same bus which Sorin, the Romanian construction boss I met in Glasgow, uses to bring his men over.
Yeah, we should arrive in Glasgow on Saturday.
It's the same one I filmed at the service station.
How long does it take?
It's also a route I know the traffickers use. A route I want to capture on camera. It's early morning in Romania's capital, Bucharest. I'm on my way to a car park on the outskirts of the city. I'm told a minibus will pick me up. The man with me is security, posing as my travelling companion. We ask for one-way tickets to Glasgow. The driver wants £165 each in sterling. Over the next 10 hours, we head north, picking up more and more Romanian passengers. We're driving to meet a long-distance coach that will take us to the UK.
We've just pulled into a place called Cluj, and this is where we meet the bus. And then we start the task from here across Hungary, Austria, Germany, France, etc.
The passengers seem to be preparing for a long haul in the UK.
How long will you go to UK for?
Years, maybe 1 year, 2 years.
Wow, okay. Where are you going to work?
This guy go London, me I go Leeds.
What do you do?
Car wash.
Are you working there too?
Construction.
Construction? Wow.
The bus is full. Nearly all are going to the UK for work, many in response to online adverts, others going on the promise of a job. Ahead of us, 3 days, 7 countries, 2,000 miles. The film being shown, Liam Neeson's movie, Taken, with Romanian subtitles.
Remember, that's a film about human trafficking. Somewhat ironic.
This 19-year-old is going to Crawley.
In Romania, I work in IT. Now I'm going to be a waiter.
And is the money good?
No.
No.
180.
180. What? A day, a week?
A week.
118 times a week. What I'm struggling with at the moment is trying to work out the difference between those who are effectively being trafficked on this bus or those who are simply being exploited.
For me, life and food is free and £200 per week.
Yeah. So they pay for your accommodation and things?
Yeah.
This man is heading to Coventry to work in a warehouse, but it's not his first time working in the UK.
Do you feel exploited there sometimes?
Yeah.
But you're working for what, £4 hour? Yeah, but that's exploitation of you.
In Romania, we work for £7 1 day.
Yeah.
Family of kids.
Difficult.
Very, very hard life.
You know, when you speak to these people, they are full of hopes and dreams of something better waiting for them in the UK. I wonder how many of them will go on to realise they've been not only exploited, conned, but trafficked. Three days after leaving, we arrive at the same London service station I'd filmed at just a few weeks earlier. As I watch everyone disappear into the night in minibuses for their new lives around the UK, I get into the one bound for Scotland. I wonder which of my travelling companions, already clearly being exploited, will find out they've been trafficked. Back home, there's just one last thing for me to do. I call the man in London selling his kidney. Is he part of one of the most ruthless and cruel aspects of the trafficking trade, the trade in human organs, or just desperate for money? We meet. He says he's called Adrian. With him is a woman he says is his wife. He's also selling her kidney.
This is all very new for me, and I don't really know how it works and what to do. And
you have discovered you have a problem, yeah?
I tell him the kidney is for my cousin who's sick.
Where would it take place? And because what?
The transport.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want to make?
Well,
here or in other
well,
countries?
it's illegal here.
I know.
Is it
In
illegal in
Romania,
Romania?
it's okay.
Okay.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
Romania, no, not illegal, but
Not illegal.
It's illegal in Romania also.
I talked to my doctor.
I talked with that doctor and I tell him it's a friend from England and I want to help him.
By giving your kidney?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. In Romania, 100 or 200 people send every day. Send every day this kidney.
And how much do you want?
45.
€1,000 or sterling? Euros.
He tells me we need to make a private payment to the doctor who'll be carrying out the operation.
The secret payment to the doctor that we make, how much would that be?
That's all. Maybe £1,000.
£1,000 sterling, okay.
Both their kidneys are for sale, he says, because he needs the money. But it's the woman's kidney he keeps referring to. She remains strangely quiet.
Are you scared for your wife?
I am scared, but I know the doctor is okay. He's very good in Romania, doctor.
Is he?
Yeah.
He does these transplants all the time.
His ease with this criminal approach is surprising, bearing in mind his previous profession.
In Romania, I work like plumber, and after I worked several months like officer, police officer.
You worked as a police officer?
Yeah.
He tells me he's aware that traffickers are now targeting those selling organs.
I was scared, yeah.
You're scared of being targeted
Yeah.
by them?
Because I know it's illegal here.
I tell him I'll be in touch and we say goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.
When asked for comment by the BBC, he denied having a kidney for sale. Selling their own organs, buying into dreams, wanting the escape. I realise now that these choices, often made out of sheer desperation, somehow make the victims complicit in their own trafficking. Such is the need to chase the promise of something better. And having seen what I have and heard from those who've lived at the heart of it, who can blame them? At the heart of the supply chain.
I am not a trafficker.
Who's the trafficker then?
If you kill me now, come with me to car, don't take nothing, then run from here. I'm running.
I discover a multi-million-pound criminal network.
And how much do you want?
45,000. Yeah.
I'm shocked by that, are you? I have no words for it.
And investigate the trade right on our doorstep.
All gave this as their address. So you don't know any of the names of the people?
Tonight, humans for sale. It's early morning. I've just arrived at a service station on the outskirts of London. I've been told that 3 times a week, a bus from Romania pulls into this car park.
It's just before 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, the information I have is that the bus set off from Romania 2 days ago. It's been travelling non-stop for 2 days. And when it comes here, the people will get off and be separated into various minibuses. So I'm just waiting on these minibuses to arrive.
Minutes later, and 4 empty minibuses with Romanian number plates turn up. All I need now is for the long-distance coach to arrive.
10 to 3 and no sign of the bus, but the minibuses are still there, so... Oh. There it is, the bus.
The bus is filled with Romanians. They've just travelled non-stop for more than 60 hours, crossing 7 countries to get here, their final destination, the UK. They will all have come willingly. It's just some may have been trafficked.
I guess if I want to find out more about where these people have come from and what their stories are, or stories of people like them, then I'm going to have to get that bus.
Human trafficking is big business. People are now the second most lucrative criminal commodity next to drugs, with lives being traded and sold on a scale never seen before. I've spent the past 6 months investigating this trade and witnessed some of the shocking and ruthless ways in which humans are now being exploited.
My investigation begins here, in the Highlands of Scotland.
It's a balanced life, it's a colorful life. I was passing my life, with my wife, my family, my dad, my mom, my brother, sister, everybody with it together. It's a good life.
Abul was working in his family's restaurant when he saw a job for a tandoori chef in the UK. It was being advertised by this man, Shamsul Arafin, who, after giving Abul a job, then ordered him to pay £20,000 for the visa and the paperwork.
I borrowed the money from the private lending agent.
You went to money lenders?
Yeah, and I arranged the money, and my father sold the land.
Arafin ran this hotel in a remote village near Fort William. As seen in this online advert, the hotel and grounds were extensive, catering to coach parties. Abul soon discovered the promised job as a tandoori chef was a lie.
My work involved in gardening, cleaning, room, cooking, painting, log moving, cutting bush. In the night time also serve the customer.
This was now his life. 22 hours a day, 7 days a week. Fellow Bangladeshi Kamal Ahmed also became Arafin's slave. Both men realized they were trapped, victims of labor trafficking. And they had to stay under Arafin's control if they had any hope of recovering their money.
You have to pay £13,000 to me, and after working with me for 5 years, then you will get your money back. I am the king of this Stewart Hotel, like he says like that. Your money is with me, passport is with me.
During the time that you worked for Arafin, how much did you get paid?
I got only £1,600 in 15 months.
One of the hotel's regular customers was Alison Smith. After several months of befriending the men, they opened up as to what Arifin was doing to them.
They were frightened of being beaten, they were frightened of being hurt by him. And they were frightened. They were frightened for their lives. The only thing that was missing was the whip on their back. It was trafficking, and I couldn't believe it. This had been going on under my nose, and I didn't know anything about it, and the community didn't know anything about it. They were promised a wonderful life, and they got the exact opposite.
Arifin was prosecuted for labour trafficking. He was jailed for just 3 years. With the legal case closed, both men were ordered to leave the country by the Home Office, their visa applications refused. A move they say has put their lives in danger, still owing thousands to moneylenders in Bangladesh.
If you don't pay them, what is the threat?
They just threatening me. Once a time I was in my country, they just want to sell my kidney. They want to sell my kidney. If I go by country and they will harm for me, you know, I have to pay them.
You have no choice.
No choice.
More than a third of all human trafficking victims are exploited for labour. I'm on my way to meet a man who spent years helping rescue and support victims of the trafficking trade in Scotland.
People have got distorted views about what human trafficking actually is. It's not people being snatched off the street and then forced abroad. You know, it's people being sold a dream, being sold an idea of a better lifestyle, you know, better housing, a better income, an opportunity to better their lives. Then they arrive here, their travel documents are taken from them, they're put in atrocious accommodation, which is usually overcrowded. They're not given the kind of job they would expect to get, if they get any job at all.
How big is the problem here?
The victims run into millions. In Scotland alone, you'd be talking thousands rather than hundreds or more than that.
Jim says he's watched entire communities become affected by human trafficking, like Glasgow's Govan Hill.
There's a high number of victims from the Govan Hill area, and that's because there's a clear link between Eastern European crime gangs who have human trafficking as one of the things that they do, but links with organised Asian crime gangs in Glasgow. So the Eastern European crime gangs will provide the victims, and the Asian crime gangs here will provide the accommodation, which is why there's quite a lot of it in Govan Hill.
Roma communities from Slovakia, the Czech Republic and Romania make up more than a fifth of the local population. Those countries are amongst the most popular source countries for trafficking. Most of the victims and the traffickers are Roma. It's little wonder then that areas like this repeatedly come to the attention of enforcement agencies investigating human trafficking. Raids on properties here are a familiar sight. This mother and daughter from Slovakia were jailed after trafficking a young girl from Eastern Europe to Govan Hill. And as recently as February, police arrested suspects in a sex trafficking case. It's believed girls were being brought to Govan Hill from Slovakia and forced into prostitution. Roma are one of the most vulnerable ethnic minority groups in the world and have been marginalised and excluded for centuries. Trying to get any information here is hard.
Now, the problem is that the Roma people have spent years facing some of the worst kinds of discrimination, so they're very private people, and trying to engage them in conversation is difficult, let alone trying to bring up the subject of human trafficking.
If I want to try and investigate the supply chain, meet those at the heart of the trade, then I need to go to where both the victims and the traffickers are coming from. Slovakia. It only became independent from Czechoslovakia in 1993. Since then, it's struggled to break the cycle of poverty. Here, Romas are marginalised from the rest of the population, living in squalid shanty settlements with little or no money. Slovakia is one of the most popular source countries in Europe for traffickers, the destination for most of their victims, the UK. I'm on my way to meet a man who describes himself as a social worker. He works closely with authorities in trafficking cases between Slovakia and Scotland.
He's one of the few people in this area who's prepared to work with the Roma community. And here he is now. I'm told that what he doesn't know about trafficking in this area is not worth knowing.